Young, who provided us with this smart board to go through all the headlines. And don't forget, RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. First of all, coming up on the show today, Coach Saban has a press conference coming up later on Thursday, so no coaches checklist for this Thursday show. We will have players checklist, though, as we'll hear from John Mechie III, as well as Fedarian Mathis talking about the Iron Bowl win against Auburn, plus looking ahead to the SEC championship game against Georgia. Then we'll have a Hey Coach preview with Eli Gold, as tonight we have the SEC championship game preview show from Baumhauer's Victory Grill. Very similar to a regular Hey Coach show, but again, it's coming up tonight, 6:30, as we're talking just football only, coming up tonight on what is typically Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show. Again, an SEC Coaches Preview Show tonight. And then we'll be joined by the voice of the Georgia Bulldogs, Scott Howard, to get us a really detailed scouting report on Georgia with the other booth. As we had this for you on Tuesday, want to hear it again to just get the Georgia players' names fresh in your mind and really hear what Kirby Smart has done this season, getting ready for the SEC championship game. Crimson Tide, of course, back in the SEC championship game against the Georgia Bulldogs in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, a place where Alabama has never lost in that stadium. And coming up at noon Central, we will have our airtime across the radio network. We'll have a booth cam available as well on our Facebook page. Kickoff at 3 p.m. Central against the Georgia Bulldogs, as the Crimson Tide have really enjoyed this game historically. A loss Coach Saban's first year in 2008, but after that, starting with the 2009 win against the Florida Gators in the championship game, Alabama has won 7 straight SEC championship games. Atlanta's always been a really good home field advantage, and you can even look back to the start of this season, a dominant win against the Miami Hurricanes in the Chick-fil-A kickoff game. This is a building Alabama is really comfortable in. This is a stage where the Crimson Tide has typically shined, so we're certainly looking forward to what's coming up on Saturday with the Crimson Tide football team. Saturday will also be busy for the Alabama men's basketball team, as the Crimson Tide, now ranked number 16th in the AP and Coaches Poll, had that loss to Iona last Thursday, backed it up with wins against Drake and Miami, and now a marquee matchup, the battle in Seattle against number 3 Gonzaga, a team that was number 1 before they fell to Duke last Friday night in Las Vegas, but still third-ranked team in the country. 7 p.m. Central will be the tip-off of that game. Our airtime will be at 6 p.m. Central across the network, and really the football game should be ending right around tip-off. So we're certainly hoping you can join us on the radio for both football and basketball coming up on Saturday, as the Crimson Tide now 6-1 on the season after a solid week at the ESPN Events Invitational, especially bouncing back after the first loss of the year. Then the Crimson Tide women's basketball team, they have been enjoying a lot of time here in Tuscaloosa. On Tuesday night, a dominant win over Memphis, 71-44, as Megan Abrams was able to score 14 points. Hannah Barber even had a banged-up right eyebrow and had to get stitches during the game, but she came back and performed really well, helping Alabama defeat the Memphis Tigers. 4 wins in a row for Christy Curry's team. Now coming up on Friday, it'll be Alabama at home against Houston, a really powerful team coming in from the AAC, so we're looking forward to that matchup. 6 p.m., our radio coverage will start at 5:55 across the network on Friday. And then on Sunday, a road trip to a SoCon school. Alabama will be going to Chattanooga. That has been a women's basketball power in the SoCon for many, many years. Can't wait for that matchup coming up at 1 p.m. coming up on Sunday. Radio airtime at 12:55, getting you set for that ball game. But here on the show today, again, we'll have players checklist, followed by our Hey Coach preview with Eli Gold. Then we'll hear from the voice of the Georgia Bulldogs, Scott Howard. Then we'll take a look at our weekend schedule. But first things first, let's hear from Alabama players, John Mechie III, as well as Fedarian Mathis.
I think it's the same thing everybody's been thinking. We've been seeing how hard he's been working in practice, him bringing it every day in practice, him coming along and learning. So I think it's just a tribute to all his hard work paying off. Extremely confident. I think we're concerned about ourselves more and playing our best brand of football, knowing that we're going against a really good defense. But I think for us, it's just playing our best brand of football. I guess the benefit on that is just the experience that comes with it and being able to learn from it, being able to go back and see and just be more critical, more self-critical, and critique the games that are tighter, and just the more things to learn from them.
For the most part, I think it shows that a lot about this team. You know, we got a lot of toughness, and we willing to fight to get what we want. Like I said, I just feel like we got to just take all of that as for motivation to get what we need to get. You know, just keep working for what we want, and also going into this week. From the day I stepped on campus, you know, Coach Saban always preaching me that, you know, you got to work hard to get what you want. And I'm proud to say that, you know, I had a chance to, you know, just to say I played for Coach. And, you know, just one thing that I love about Coach, man, he just shows that how much the game means to him. And, you know, he loved every guy in the room. And he wanted just as bad as us. And so I don't mind going out playing for Coach any day, no matter where we at. You know, I lay it all on the line for Coach. Oh yeah, a lot of teams, you know, all year a lot of teams have tried to do what they want to do to try to stop Will, but you know, Will's a great player, and I think he prepared well all week, you know, for whatever comes in the game that's to be thrown at him, and I think he does a great job of competing with anything that comes his way. So Will is just a great player, man, and he's always ready for whatever. So.
Eli, Roll Tide, it's great to see you. How's everything going?
Roll Tide, everything's going well. Yeah, it's really the same show that we do every Thursday, except the first half hour will be football talk instead of talking with other coaches from around the campus. And then Coach Saban will be on tonight starting at 7. So should be a lot of fun.
Well, we're still trying to catch our breath a bit from the Iron Bowl this past Saturday. We've talked before, and even previewing last week's game, we've had a lot of memorable experiences at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Now we get to add a memorable experience along with now one of our favorite memories, a win for the Crimson Tide.
It was amazing. It was, I mean, we all got off the air, and John Parker's sitting over here to my right. I'm sitting here. Butch Owens, our spotter, had taken Chris Stewart's seat because Chris had gone down to the field to get ready to host the Nick Saban show. And the game is over, and we do our post game and we sign off. And that's what we all did. We just sat there like this in our respective chairs, and we didn't move. We just sat there for a moment. I mean, we were spent, and obviously none of us played a single down. But in our own ways, we did, and we were just emotionally and physically whipped, as I dare say our listeners were as well.
Really was a tough 59 football minutes, followed by 24 seconds we really enjoyed at the end, and then all the different overtimes. Just what do you make of the adjustments that Alabama had to make in order to come back and win that game?
That's what championships teams do. That's what champions do. I said on the air, Bama was like the heavyweight boxer who, somehow managed to get up off the canvas and throw that haymaker to end the fight. They had to execute. They had to execute, and and Bryce did, and others did. It was not easy. It was not pretty by any stretch of the imagination. But so Corey comes up with his first touchdown catch of the year at a most opportune time. It was just amazing. It really was. And but you had to. It wasn't that we weren't ready to play as far as preparation. They just had to execute, and they did over that final 2-minute run for the victory. It was just unbelievable. And then it was like it reminded me in some instances of that game in 1989 in State College when Thomas Raham blocked the field goal by Ray Tarasi. And the stadium, which was in an uproar the whole day because they were beating Alabama, in a matter of a split second, it was like you turned the switch off and the place fell into abject silence. Well, that's what it was like. I mean, the Auburn fans, they were so high all day long. They had this major upset for the taking. And then all of a sudden, bam, here comes Bama to win it. And the stadium, other than for the Alabama fans who were there, the stadium just plunged into abject silence. And it was, that's what came to mind. The only other time I'd heard that was Penn State. I didn't hear that when Bama beat Georgia for the national championship because the building was split and there were tons of Bama fans there. There weren't tons of Bama fans there on Saturday. So when the game was lost for Auburn, You could hear the tangible hushing up of the fans. It was very, very interesting and very memorable.
Certainly was, and also it goes back to what we heard last Wednesday night on Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show. Coach Saban talking about, when I first got here, everybody just enjoyed wins, and these kids are working hard. Just what was it like sitting just 2 chairs away from him as he was going into what some call a rant, but a lot of people call kind of a call to arms, getting this fan base ready for what may be ahead this season.
It needed to be said. I thought it needed to be said. I had one role at that point. Shut up. I had one role, hush up. Then when I thought he was done, I said, that was magnificently said, or whatever it was that I said. And then he, resumed. And I just sat there and let him have his say. The most awkward part was, that the length of his answer, his rant, call it what you will, took us right up to his final word, which is sponsored each week by Mercedes-Benz. And there was really no good transition. And I said, well, Coach, I guess that brings us to your final word, which I think we may have already heard, but this one is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz, the best do nothing. It was not a great transition, but we handled it as well as we could. But no, it was, I looked around the room and there were people giving it this and cheering at the restaurant, university staff members who were there having dinner, and they were clapping and applauding. It needed to be said. And I'm glad it was said by him, because it wouldn't have had the impact if it were said by me or anybody else.
It was a memorable moment, and sitting right in between you and Coach Saban was Gary Harris. He was the media guest last week, and he got seen nationwide.
Yeah, you know who really won in that whole thing, though? Alpha.
Yeah.
And Baumhauer's, because there was an Alpha logo right there next to the coach, and the Baumhauer's Victory Grill logo on the other side of the coach. And I mean, it was everywhere. It was on CNN, it was on Fox, it was on, you name the news network, it was a story on Friday morning. And those logos and the coach was everywhere. So it when you talk about something going viral, but when Nick Saban talks, you're way too young to remember this, but there was a commercial years ago for a stockbroker, E.F. Hutton. And when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen, and they had people leaning in to ostensibly listen to the advice. Well, when Nick Saban talks, people listen. And when he talks loudly, people listen even more. So everybody heard that. But literally, I got a call Friday morning. They woke me up. Actually, it was the show was Wednesday, so it was Thursday morning. A dear friend of mine who was a graduate of the University of Alabama. She's the chief White House correspondent, Caitlin Collins, for CNN, and she was anchoring the morning news on CNN on Thanksgiving morning. And she called, she says, "Yup." I said, "I am now." She said, "We're doing a piece on Coach Saban on your show last night. Turn it on if you can." And then she had to go. She hung right up. And here's CNN, a worldwide entity, they did almost a 7-minute piece on Nick Saban, the Nick Saban show, and Alabama football. So it got everybody's attention. It really did.
Special moment for sure. And that show was on Wednesday, just after we got some really tough news on Tuesday of last week, as somebody that sat in that chair between you and Coach for so many times, Cecil Hurt, longtime sports columnist and editor of the Tuscaloosa News, passed away. And that was a really fitting tribute that you paid, along with Gary and Coach Saban, last Wednesday, to somebody we're going to miss dearly, Cecil Hurt.
Oh yeah, I think one of the best lines I heard was, you never had the full story on whatever the subject was. You never had the full story until you read Cecil, until you read his column, whatever it was. He really It was like he put the seal of finality on whatever that story was. All across the nation, writers, they trusted and appreciated Cecil, his ability to put words together, and to, when you're limited in newspapers or online to a certain number of column inches, every word has a value and it takes up space. And Cecil knew how to maximize all of those words and get his point across. So it was a terrible loss. He was a dear friend, and life goes on. But and he is in a better place now, I'm sure. But it was difficult. It really, really was.
We're certainly all going to miss him. He would have loved the Iron Bowl this past Saturday, and we wish we could have read his work then. But now we're getting set for some Crimson Tide football against Georgia in the SEC Championship game. And before we let you go, just what have you learned about Georgia? This has been a matchup we've been hoping for a long time this season. Now we finally get it this Saturday.
What have I learned? Nothing, because I already knew it. And I don't want to make like I'm an expert here, but I knew that they were having the kind of year that Alabama has had many times over the years. You take a look, and I happen to have their numbers directly in front of me here. I was just working on my spotting chart actually for the game. Giving up 6.9 points a ball game, first in the nation. Giving up 78.9 rushing yards a game, first in the nation. Giving up 151.9 passing yards per game. That's second in the nation. Giving up 230.8 total yards a game. That's first in the nation. And I'd read more, but we're just going to get sick. I mean, everything they do is so very strong, not to mention, Stetson Bennett has played well. They've got Zamir White as, an outstanding running back, James Cook. And the other guy who really concerns me, because I've seen it happen over the years, is Brock Bowers, their tight end, who is, he's good, and he's their number one receiver. Their top receiver is a tight end. So it's going to be very, very tough. It's going to be a tough ball game. But with that said, Georgia has played a Clemson team that is not vintage. They've played UAB, South Carolina, that's, had an up and down year. They've played Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Missouri, Charleston Southern, Tennessee, Georgia Tech. Maybe not the murderer's row of a schedule that other teams in the country have played. So you never write off Alabama. You never write off the Crimson Tide. But everybody realizes this is going to be far and away the toughest assignment of the season. Kirby is a magnificent coach, great guy, and a magnificent coach. And he was like a sponge when he was here in Alabama. He learned everything he could from Nick Saban. He's put it to work, and he's got definitely the best team in America. Alabama to win is going to have to play the perfect ball game.
Hope to see it coming up on Saturday. And we're also looking forward tonight to the SEC Championship game preview show. Again, 6:30 from Baumhauer's Victory Grill. Eli, just have fun with the show and safe travels to Atlanta. Can't wait. Thank you again for joining us today.
You travel safely with the basketball team to Seattle. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous city. You're going to have a great time. And another tough assignment out there with Gonzaga waiting for you.
Hopefully it's a winning Saturday. But thank you, Eli. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, Roger.
Scott, here we are, a matchup we've kind of been hoping for all season long. Now it's finally here. I'm sure you guys are excited for the Tide and the Georgia Bulldogs on Saturday.
Yeah, it's probably the best matchup that you could hope for, certainly in this conference. And, Georgia's played as well as anybody all season long, and Alabama's been right there as well, with only the one loss. But these are definitely the two best teams in the Southeastern Conference, and it's great to see them playing it out for the championship.
Of course, Georgia had high expectations coming into this season, starting with the Clemson game, but Georgia gets that victory. And just take us through the journey through this season in 2021 for the Bulldogs.
Well, since that game, I mean, that's really the only close ball game that Georgia has played this season. That was a 7-point game, 10-3. Clemson didn't score a touchdown. And then after that, it was, Georgia has just run off. Let me run down the schedule here. UAB 56-7, South Carolina 40-13, Vanderbilt 62-0, Arkansas 37-0, Auburn 34-10. It just went on and on and on. And Georgia has beaten their opponents all season long by, 17, 20, 25 points or more on a consistent basis, including the last game at Georgia Tech last week, 45-0. So we've seen this team dominate early in ball games, and kind of have their way with how they wanted it to end in the second half. Get a lot of players in the ball game. Usually in the fourth quarter, there's a lot of guys deep in the roster that have gotten a lot of snaps. So, which is good. That's good for the experience. That's good for the morale of the team, certainly. And those are the guys that are going to be playing in the future. So it's great to get them that in-game experience. But it's been an amazing ride for Georgia really this year because of the way they've been able to win ball games and really dominate their opponent.
Ranks number 1 in the country, 12-0 throughout the regular season, and at the helm for most of this season has been Stetson Bennett IV. What has he done well at quarterback? How is he different than maybe when we saw him in Tuscaloosa a year ago?
Probably just experience-wise. Another year to grow, another year to learn, another year to study. He watches a lot of film. He's a regular around the athletic department when they're not on the field practicing. He's doing his work as the quarterback. He's studying trends and what he needs to do with the offensive coordinator Todd Monken and Stetson he's just a calm force in the offensive backfield and on the team in general. He doesn't really get too high and too emotional. He just goes about his business. He's not the prototypical quarterback with the throwing the ball 75 yards in the air downfield. He can get the job done with his passing. His big thing has been his ability to run the football and give that position a different look, which traditionally JT Daniels is not a running guy. He's more of a stand in the pocket and deliver the football. And Stetson gives you some more options. You're able to move the pocket with him, rollouts and bootlegs, and he can run it or he can throw on the run. And he's very good when he has those options. So he's a smart guy. He's had a lot of snaps in his career. He's a veteran. So he's really done a nice job, but he's got a great supporting cast too. And you can't leave out the players around him that help make him look good as he helps make them look good.
Yeah, tell us a little more about those guys, the running back room, wide receivers. Just talent across the board in this Georgia offense.
Yeah, there's a lot of depth there in the backfield with Zamir White, who is, I think he's still the leading rusher. I didn't check the stats just yet, but it was very tight between Zamir White and James Cook. And then Kenny McIntosh had a nice game in the win over Georgia Tech last week. And Dejon Edwards has played well when he comes in the ball game. Kendall Milton's been hurt, and his status remains to be seen for the championship game. But those are the 5 scholarship guys, and Georgia uses them frequently. I was just watching some of the Tech game earlier this week on the replay, and there was one series where Zamir White was in for 2 plays, and then James Cook came in for 2 plays, and then Kenny McIntosh came in for 2 plays, and Georgia ended up scoring a touchdown on a long run on that series with Kenny McIntosh, I believe was the right series that I'm thinking about. But it's just constant fresh legs in the ball game, and all of those guys are good with that, which is great. Their health has remained good for the most part. With Kendall Milton's obviously out with an injury, but Zamir White has been healthy most of the season, as has James Cook. Kenny McIntosh had some injuries early on, but he's back and ready to go. It's a good group. They all like to share the football, and It's great just to keep those guys fresh, and that's certainly an advantage for the offense. The offensive line is had some early injuries, and they had to shuffle some guys around. We lost our right guard the first game of the year, so we had to move our center to right guard and start a redshirt freshman at center, and then we've had some injuries at left tackle with Jamari Salyer being out the last few games. But Broderick Jones has come in and done a really nice job at left tackle. The tight ends have been outstanding. Brock Bowers, that guy's an All-American candidate. Darnell Washington had early injuries. He's a huge target, 6'7" and about 265 at tight end. He's working his way back into more and more snaps and health-wise. And John Fitzpatrick is another tight end that's very good. And then the receivers, we've gone through a lot of injuries with receivers, but the guys that have played have certainly contributed very well. So there's been a lot of luck. You have to be a little bit lucky in this game too when you're good, and to win championships, you have to have that right combination of luck and skill and experience and all of that stuff. And so far, Georgia's gotten all of that through the first 12 games.
Georgia's so good on offense. So much of the discussion as well as on the Georgia defense, and especially Jordan Davis. I mean, what a special season he's put together. Has he been one of the more disruptive players you've seen wear a Georgia uniform?
Yeah, he's terrific. I mean, he's a personality guy off the field too. Just a pleasure to be around, and those guys are fun. He's happy. He's always smiling. He's laughing and cutting up, and you like to be around those guys. So do your teammates. And his ability on the field is lights out. I mean, a lot of time he gets lost in the shuffle just because of the position he plays. He's covered up in that interior line of scrimmage, so you don't see him a lot until he comes out of the pile and makes a tackle down the line of scrimmage, or gets a sack, or he's taking on 2 and 3 blockers at a time and allowing others to make the stops. And but he gets his fair share. He's such a huge force in there at 6'6" and anywhere from 340 to 350, whatever he weighs on a specific day. But yeah, he's very disruptive in that line of scrimmage. Georgia's certainly going to miss him when he's moved on to the next level. And that's a hard body to replace just because he is so large. And he's so skilled too. He's very fast. He's got quickness. He's one of the better defensive players that I've seen in my time at Georgia.
And then looking at this game on Saturday, where does Georgia match up best with Alabama, in your opinion?
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably. I don't know. Maybe just across the board. I mean, I don't know that. Alabama's. They've got great players too. Maybe defensively, Georgia might have a little bit of an edge over Alabama's play this year. I don't know how much. Certainly, a standout linebacker that Alabama has in Anderson. He's had an amazing year. I think it's a pretty even matchup across the board. I don't know. I haven't taken the time to break it down position by position, and Alabama's receivers are probably a little more experienced and maybe a little more skilled than Georgia, but maybe Georgia's depth in the running back position is a little stronger. Obviously, quarterback Bryce Young is getting a heck of a lot more headlines than Stetson Bennett would, but you could probably break it down position by position and give each side an advantage there, where it would all even out in the end when you did that.
And then last question, Kirby Smart, of course, has spent a lot of time here in Tuscaloosa and continues developing as a head coach. Just how have you seen him mature throughout the years as he continues growing into this position? And obviously has a very strong team this year. He has had in the past, but he's kept this Georgia machine moving forward. I'm sure that's impressive to see.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, he had I'm sure when he got the job here, he had a formula in mind. And the things that he had learned at Alabama and all his other stops, his coaching stops, before he became a head coach. But he's been able to implement all of those different ideas that he had. He looks at it more as an organization, and he's the CEO of the organization. So it's kind of operated, like a business in many ways. Just the way things are handled. There's a lot of staff, so there's a lot of people to do a lot of. I don't want to say the smaller things, but things that the head coach necessarily doesn't need to concern himself with. So he's got great support. And when you're talking on the field, I mean, my goodness, they practice hard. They make practice hard on purpose. They make it challenging. They put these guys through adversity in practice so that when you get to the game, the game is supposed to be easy compared to what they've gone through during the week. But he's assembled a good staff. They recruit tremendously. He had all the ideas when he got the job, and he's the guy everybody listens to now in the football program because he knows what he's doing, and he's had the success to back that up since that, after the first year. They really kicked it up a notch, and the last 5 years of his tenure here have really been good. And the one thing that they're still seeking is that national championship.
Well, it's Alabama coming up against Georgia on Saturday in Atlanta for the SEC championship game. Who knows? Maybe the first of two meetings we see this year between the Crimson Tide and the Bulldogs. But Scott, we've really enjoyed hearing from you and getting a breakdown on the Bulldogs. Looking forward to a great game. Just thank you for your time.
You bet, Roger. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks to Scott Howard of Georgia for joining us as we're getting set for Alabama against Georgia in the SEC championship game coming up on Saturday in Atlanta. But that's not the only thing we have coming up here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network, as we'll take a look at our weekend schedule. First things first, we have the SEC Championship Game preview show coming up tonight, 6:30. Hope you can join us live at Baumhower's Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa, as Eli will be joined by Coach Saban starting at 7 o'clock, talking all football tonight on the show. Tomorrow night, women's basketball against Houston as the Crimson Tide round out what's been a really good homestand already. 4 wins, trying to make it 5 in a row before the road trip to Chattanooga. And you can see that ball game coming up on Sunday at 1 p.m. And then Saturday is going to be very, very busy here on the network. We'll have our noon air time for football against Georgia in the SEC Championship game. The game will kick off at 3 p.m. And then pretty much as soon as the football game's over around that time, it'll be tip-off from Seattle, Washington. Alabama against third-ranked Gonzaga in the battle for Seattle. Certainly can't wait to get out to the West Coast for that game. And our radio air time for the battle in Seattle will be coming up at 6 p.m. And then don't forget, Sunday, women's basketball against Chattanooga. Then we'll be back here on the network next week for one edition of Crimson Drive, driven by Tuscaloosa Toyota, coming up on Thursday at 2 p.m. Central. Well, I hope you're ready for the SEC Championship game after the 2 Crimson Drives we've had so far this week as Alabama takes on Georgia. The Crimson Tide hoping to win this game, win the SEC Championship, defend the title from a year ago, and also earn a berth in the college football playoff rankings. And the final rankings do come out on Sunday. So Alabama, great opportunity ahead of the Crimson Tide coming up on Saturday, and we've certainly been glad that you've joined us today for this preview, the Crimson Tide against Georgia in the SEC Championship game. Thanks to Eli Gold, thanks to Scott Howard for joining us. Thank you to producer extraordinaire Ethan Carabin for putting all of this together on this very busy Thursday, and this has been Roger Hoover with you for the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Just have a safe finish to your week. Enjoy the trip to Atlanta if you're going, and get ready to roll with the Tide, hopefully for another SEC Championship. Until then, see everyone. Roll Tide.